to do today is learn about percents and fractions. Today is the first of probably 3 lessons, maybe 4, in which we will be dealing with percents, and that happens to be our one and only vocabulary word today. The definition of percent is literally per 100, meaning parts of 100. To show percent, it's a ratio whose denominator is 100%, so the ratio is part to whole. Here's the first of our 4 examples. Take a look at the directions. Write the percent as a fraction. Well, here is 51%. What we're going to do is express 51%, just as we're told, as a fraction. Since 51% means 51 parts out of 100, means that this 50, and we said that a percent is a ratio whose denominator is 100, then we take our parts and put it in the numerator. So 51% as a fraction is 51 over 100, 51 hundredths. And we'll do one more like this. Here we have 8%, 8 parts of 100. And as I said before, percent is a ratio of parts to whole. So we set up our fraction bar. We put 100 in the denominator because 100% means the whole of something. And we take our 8% and we put it into the numerator. Now let's take a look at the ratio that we have. We have 8 hundredths. And what's the rule when we are working with fractions? Always simplify simplest form. The greatest common factor of 8 and 100 is 4. When we divide a 4 out of each number, we end up with 2 over 25. So 8% written as a fraction is 2/25. Now this example is a little different. Here what we have to do is write the fraction as a percent. So we're going from one direction to the other. 3/20. Well, we know that percent is out of 100. So what we're going to do is set up a proportion, and we are going to put our 100% in the denominator. Now here we have a couple different ways that we can find out what the percent is when we have 3/20. We can either put an X up here, and we can, if we go back to our proportion lessons, we can either make an equivalent fraction. We can use algebra and multiply both sides by 100 to undo the division by an X, or we can cross-multiply. Either way, we'll get the same answer. I know that when you see something like this, I'm sure already you know 20 goes into 100 evenly. You multiply by 5. So if you're going to multiply the denominator by 5, you also have to multiply the numerator. 3 times 5 is 15. So 3/20 is equal to 15 hundredths. Now that we have our ratio over to 100, we can take that numerator and make it a percent. So 3/20 becomes 15 hundredths because we're looking for an equivalent fraction whose denominator is 100. And then if 15 parts out of the whole, that gets represented as 15%, 15 parts of 100. Here, this is a little different. Find 18% of 40. Now you'll see this a lot, a percentage of something, some whole. And if you remember when we talk about word problems, there are always clue words. For instance, if you see the word sum, you know that you have to add. Or if you see the phrase the difference between, then you know that you have to subtract. That's the operation. Well, in math, oftentimes when you see the word of, that is telling us that we need to multiply. So when you see directions that say find 18% of 40, it means that you are going to multiply. Well, what do you multiply? Well, you take your percent and you convert it to a fraction. 18% is 18 parts out of 100. We want to multiply that by 40. Put the 40 over 1 just to make it easier. 1800ths times 40 over 1. When we look at the 18 and the 1, they are already simplified. So let's see if we can cross-simplify the 100 and the 40, and we can. The greatest common factor of 140 is 20. There are 5 20s in 100, and there are 2 20s in 40. And so now we can just multiply our numerators. We have 18 times 2, which is 36. 5 times 1, which is 5. And that simplifies to 7 and 1/5, which means that 18% of 40 is 7 and 1/5. And now for our last example. Find the probability of rolling a prime number on a standard die, and then write your answer as a percent. Even though this was just the one lesson prior to this new one, I wanted to remind you of the formula that we use in finding the probability of an event. We set up a ratio, and in our numerator we write the favorable outcomes that we have given our events, and that gets compared to possible outcomes. So what we're looking at here is the possibility of rolling a prime number. On a standard die, which is numbered 1 to 6, there are 3 prime numbers, 2, 3, and 5. Those are our favorable outcomes because our hope is to roll a prime. On a standard die, the numbers are 1 to 6, which means that there are 6 possible outcomes. If the probability is 3 to 6, we simplify that to 1 to 2. And that would be fine if we were only looking for the probability, but we have the second set of directions here. Write your answer as a percent. So what I'll do is I'll come down here and I'll take our answer, which is 1/2. And remember, we want to make that equal to a ratio whose denominator is 100 because we're talking about percent. 2 goes into 150 times, so 1/2 is equal to 50 hundredths, which means the probability of rolling a prime number on a standard die is 50%.